Testing, testing. Some Bible verses here. Christ in the Old Testament. Now, if you haven't read the Old Testament yet, I want you to read it. Let me get that up. Again, Christ can be found throughout the Old Testament. I'm going to give you some of the verses here. Let's see. Maybe I'll get it up on here too for you. I'm going to be reading from a book, though. But here we go. Genesis 14 through 16. Hopefully that's big enough. You can see if I can make it a little bit bigger. Let me just see. 25, I guess. Let me go to maybe 22 might be big enough for you. So Genesis 1, 14, 16, if you want to follow along. And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth." And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. So from the book I'm reading, the sun being the greater light and the moon the lesser light speaks of Christ and his relationship to the church. As the moon reflects to the earth the greater light of the sun, so the church reflects the greater light of Christ to the world, thus becoming a lesser light herself. So both Christ and the church bear the title, the light of the world. And then it gives John 8:12, Matthew 5:14. So next, Genesis 2:21. And I'm not sure how long this video is going to be. It's always easier for you to see the final duration of it. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept, and he took one of his ribs, closed up the flesh instead thereof. So I'm just checking my audio level. Seems like it's okay. So there you have that. And think about what Christ did for us, and he died for our sins. Ephesians 5:25 I'll give you next. So Ephesians 5:25, let me just get to it. And is this it? Yep. Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it. So again, this is showing Adam went in a deep sleep, and this book was saying, well, look how Christ died, okay? But I thought that was kind of an interesting one. Let's see, do I want to give Genesis 2:1-2? Let's see. I guess I have it as good. Let's see. Let no man therefore judge you. Okay, Matthew has that. Okay, let me get this verse here, and I'm just trying to... I got the ones marked I want to give you, but that one, I don't know, maybe I'll skip that one for just because. So Genesis 7:1, I'll get to next. And, I wish I could get to it a little bit quicker, but it's not that worst. But I think I should keep it up here for you. So Genesis 7:1, and the Lord said unto Noah, Come thou and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteousness before me in this generation. So invitation to come all thy house into the ark. And if you look up Acts, maybe it's even on here. Nope. But if you go to Acts 16, is it? 31. So Acts 16:31 here. I'm about to get to it. You're going to see, remember, it was talking about Noah, thy house. And here, and they said, Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, and thou shalt be saved in thy house. So if we go back to Genesis 7:1, and the Lord said unto Noah, Come thou and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation. So I guess I'm just pointing out thy house, and the ark is a symbol too of let's see what the book says here. The ark, I don't know if it says here, but if you think about it, they had to go to the ark, Noah and his family, and they were safe in there from God's wrath and the flood. And just like you got to come to Christ, and you're in Christ and you're saved. So next, let's see. I got them marked. I'm skipping through this page. So Genesis 22:8, and maybe this won't be such a long video. I'm not even reading most of them just for time's sake, but I want to show you some of them. Genesis 22:8, and Abraham said, "My son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering." So they went both of them together. And you think about it, God, the Son of God, God's Son, Jesus Christ, was a lamb sacrificed for us. And here in Genesis 22, this is Abraham, and he said to his son here, if you go earlier, Abraham was going to sacrifice his son, but here Abraham said, "My son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering." So they went both of them together. So people might say, how was Abraham going to sacrifice his son? Well, he had confidence in the Lord. And here it is that Abraham said to his son that God is going to provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. And then we know in, the New Testament, like I said, Jesus Christ offered himself, and that was God's Son. So there you go. So next, Genesis 37:4-5. I'll get up here. So Genesis 34:35. So it takes a while to scroll. Oh, 4:5. It is 4:5. I don't even know if there is up to 35. There might be. So Genesis 4:5, 37 chapter, 4:5 here. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it his brethren, and they hated him yet more. So there you have the dreams. And the Jews were the brethren of Jesus, and Jesus spoke to them things, and they hated him. So Joseph in the Old Testament, they call him a type of Christ, where the stuff that Joseph went, Jesus Christ died for our sins. But you see some how Joseph was tossed and cast. His brethren here hated him, and the book is saying how Jesus and his Jews brethren hated Jesus Christ, just like Joseph's brethren hated him. And there's a book. Author Pink has some book about Acts. I thought it must be Genesis, that they showed Joseph and all. Some of those things, like I'm pointing out, about Joseph and some similarities. And as far as like I said, kind of like there, but just with author Pink, he is a Calvinist, and sometimes he'll say, "Oh, you got to go to this translation." A lot of these people that write the book, especially many years ago, they say you got a better translation. Well, no, you got a good translation, the King James Bible. So stick with the King James Bible. So next, I'm going to take you to Genesis. I guess this is moving pretty quick. Still got a long ways to go, though. So just keep on going. Keep on going. So Genesis 41:43, we're going to go here and just keep on talking. So 41:43, and he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had. And they cried before him, bow the knee, and he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. Talking about Joseph being a ruler over all the land of Egypt. Well, if you go to Philippians 2:10 here, so now we're going to Philippians 2:10. Best thing to do if you have a program, or if you want to follow along, just get this program and then you can follow along. Philippians 2:10 here, that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow, of things in heaven and things in earth and things under the earth. So every knee's going to bow, and that's interesting too. Let me go with that one more time. So it talks about every knee's going to be bowing for Jesus, in heaven, the things in heaven, in earth, and things under the earth, under. So think about that one. So again, Genesis 41:43, and he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had, and they cried before him, bow the knee, and he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. So there you go. And Genesis 41:46 next. So we're going to Genesis 41:46. So 41:46, and going here. Genesis 41:46. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And if we look at Luke, so Joseph being 30 years old, we're going to now go to Luke chapter 3, verse, I think it is 23. So Luke 3:23. And Jesus himself began to be about 30 years of age, being as was supposed the son of Joseph, which was the son of Heli. I don't know how to pronounce it, but so then about 30 years old of age, Jesus Christ. Shows that Joseph, before that, being 30 years old, when he stood before Pharaoh. So let me just get a drink of water. And next, now we're going to go to Exodus. So Exodus, if you want to follow along, 26:35. So Exodus 26:35. 26:35. Here we go. And thou shalt set the table without the veil, and the candlestick over against the table on the side of the tabernacle toward the south, and thou shalt put the table on the north side. And then this book says, the fact that God chose to put the table of showbread and the candlestick without the veil points directly to Christ. And, the showbread speaks of Christ, the bread of life, John 6, while the candlestick typifies, I just say it's Christ the Lord, Christ the light of the world. So, the candlestick and the light. And also, the Bible verses about let your light shine forth. And, even the Word of God, the Bible being a lamp. And I think the Holy Spirit as a light in the Bible. So there's that. And, the placement of the candlestick and the table. The book says, speak of God's mercy toward men, found in the person of Christ alone. And that was God manifested in the flesh. So Exodus 33:21-22, it would be next here. And I'm not giving them all here, I'm just giving some of them. So partly for time's sake, but also, maybe it would just be too much information in one video. So Exodus 33:21-22. And the Lord said, behold, there is a place by me, and thou shalt stand upon a rock. And it shall come to pass, while my glory passeth by, that I will put thee in a cleft of the rock, and will cover thee with my hand while I pass by. And, always check the cross references here. They have these, but I'm going to take it to Psalm. So again, just think about that, Jesus Christ being the rock. And that's where I'm going to go, go here, Psalm. And, that's interesting here. So, this one's not capitalized here, but if you go, let's see if it would be this one. Let's see where it takes us. Well, let me take you to Psalm 27:25. So got to find it. 27:25 takes a while to get to it. Look how many. It's a lot, but that's good. So here, so you can read it on your screen. For in the time of trouble he shall hide me in his pavilion. In the secret of his tabernacle shall he hide me. He shall set me upon a rock. And then there's all kinds of cross references there too. So remember Moses struck the rock twice, when, or the second time out of anger, when I think he was supposed to speak to it that time, and he so think about that, but maybe separate time. I don't know if I'll get to that, but I would talk about it, but I don't want to make a mistake, and it's a little different once these videos are up online for a while. So Numbers 10, 20, 10, 35 through 26. So if you want to go to Numbers 35 through 26, and we're almost there. And it came to pass, when the ark set forward, that Moses said, Rise up, Lord, and let thine enemies be scattered, and let them that hate thee flee before thee. And when it rested, he said, Return, O Lord, unto the many thousands of Israel. And the book says this points to the second coming. That's what the book thought. That was their take on this. So they took me to Psalms. It was just in Psalm 68. To the chief musician, a psalm or song of David. Let God arise. Let his enemies be scattered. Let him also that hate him flee before him. Let's see. Does it give anything else? Revelation 22:20. Oops. It's the last book of the Bible, Revelation 22, and the last chapter. Almost the last verse. And he which testifieth these things saith, Surely I come quickly. Amen. Even so, come, Lord Jesus. So next we're going to go to Deuteronomy. Taking a while, but that's okay, I'll just have to go a little bit slower because I'm going to Deuteronomy 18. Just make sure I'm recording. Okay. So Deuteronomy 18, let's see how long, it's been probably only 20 minutes. Maybe not even, let's see how much time, 17. So Deuteronomy 18, 15 through 18. The Lord thy God will raise up unto thee a prophet from the midst of thee, of thy brethren, like unto me. Unto him ye shall hearken, according to all that thou desirest of the Lord thy God in Horeb, in the day of the assembly, saying, Let me not hear again the voice of the Lord my God, neither let me see the great fire any more, that I die not. And the Lord said unto me, They shall well spoken that which they have spoken. I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren, like unto thee, and I'll put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. And the prophets, capital P. But again, Jesus Christ, the Son of God, God manifested in the flesh, but also a prophet. So Joshua 2:18 would be next. Behold, when we come into the land, thou shalt bind this line of scarlet thread in the window which thou didst let us down by. And thou shalt bring thy father, and thy mother, and thy brethren, and all thy father's household home unto thee. So Rahab's scarlet thread is a picture of the blood of Christ. And some of you probably are aware of that one. So I'm looking here, quite a bit more to go here. Joshua 3:7. And the Lord said unto Joshua, This day will I begin to magnify thee in the sight of all Israel, that they may know that, as I was with Moses, so I will be with thee. So next, I want to, before we get to the next one, just notice how, this day I begin to magnify thee in all the sight of Israel, with Joshua. And if we go to Acts 19:17, takes a while, but we'll get there. And this was known to all the Jews and Greeks also dwelling at Ephesus, and fear fell on them all, and the name of the Lord Jesus was magnified. There's the magnified. Okay, so next, Judges 16:30. And I guess I can give you Philippians, before that. Philippians 1:20. Won't take too long to get to. According to my earnest expectation and my hope, that in nothing I shall be ashamed, but that with all boldness, as always, so now also Christ shall be magnified in my body, whether it be life or by death. Judges 16:30 would be next. Judges 16:30. And Samson said, "Let me die with the Philistines." And he bowed himself with all his might, and the house fell upon the lords, and upon all the people that were therein. So the dead which he slew at his death were more than they which he slew in his life. And the book gives Philippians 2:7-8. So we'll go back. Go to Philippians 2:7-8. And now it's like the, about Samson. And I remember my mom reading me. I think we got up to about Judges. I don't know what, maybe she was reading me the New King James Bible when I was a, second grade, first, can't remember. It might have been second grade to third grade or fourth grade. I can't remember how long she read, but I know that really helped me. Hearing Genesis and Exodus, and about Moses and Samson, and Moses and Samson, I guess, were maybe the two that really stood out to me. And there would be some questions at the end of the Bible reading, and I remember my mom even said that I could usually get the questions right. And I was always really interested in, the Bible at that age. And I know I believed it, that, it really happened even, at that age. I believed it. And use the King James Bible now, so. And maybe that's why I use the King James Bible, because I think, like I said, it was the New King James. I can't remember. So I think that stuck with me, like the King James. And I thought, okay, I'll just get the King James Bible. And I just, something told me, the King James Bible it is. And I looked it up and researched it. Yeah, use the King James Bible. So that was about Samson and his death, and he, slew the Philistines in his death. Now Philippians 2:7-8, and it's talking about Jesus here. But made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. And being found fashion as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. So, Samson was a judge, and Jesus Christ is the judge. He is the judge. And, how Samson was obedient, unto his death. And Jesus Christ, it says here, he was obedient unto death. As far as where Samson, he, went out. I guess where I'm going with that one is Samson. It doesn't use the word obedient unto death, so maybe I won't use that. But I guess I won't apply that to Samson as far as those words. So sorry about that. But Samson slew in his death more men in his death than which he slew in his life. And if you think about how this relates to the cross, Jesus in these verses, through his death and resurrection, and the blood atonement for our sins, many were saved. And so look at it that way. He conquered death. So Ruth 4:5 next. So Ruth 4:5, and hopefully you're learning something. I didn't give some of them. Like, I don't think I'm giving all of them. There's a lot in Psalms. There's a lot in Isaiah. There's actually quite a bit in even Exodus. But I'm just trying to give you, some of them without making the video like 3 hours. But and some of them maybe you should find on your own too as you're studying the Bible. So Ruth 4:5, and then said Boaz, "What day thou buyest the field of the land of Naomi, thou must buy it also of Ruth the I forget how to say that. Moabitess. I should know. I listened to audiobooks just like a couple of weeks ago. The wife of the dead, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance. So Boaz here, talking about buys the field of the hand of Naomi. Also, you must buy the Ruth, also of the Ruth, the Moabites, the wife of the dead, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance. And I'll just read verse 6 too. And the kingsman said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I mar my own inheritance. Redeem thou my right to thyself, for I cannot redeem it. So he didn't want to redeem it. And so, Ruth's a good story, and there's a lot going on in Ruth. There's a lot of commentaries on Ruth. And let's see. Okay, so Psalm 69:4, and this is about Book of Ruth, kinsman redeemer. Boaz redeeming Ruth, and it's a picture of Christ redeeming, the Gentiles, and I'd say too, redeeming, sinners onto salvation. Saving through God's grace, and again, what Jesus did for us, he was our Redeemer. So if we go to Psalm 69:4. So Psalm 69:4. They that hate me without a cause are more than the hairs of mine head. They that would destroy me, being mine enemies wrongfully, are mighty. Then I restored that which I took not away. So let's see. I guess I'd have to study this one more. I've read Psalms a few times, but I haven't. I did study some of them, but so that's the book the verse gave. But I just say, hey, look at Ruth as a kinsman redeemer and Jesus Christ being our Redeemer. And Book of Ruth is a small book, but it's worth studying and reading. So 1 Samuel 3:21. I mean, all the books are worth reading, and so 3:21. And the Lord appeared again in Shiloh, for the Lord revealed himself to Samuel in Shiloh by the word of the Lord. So Genesis 49:10. We're going to go to important chapter. Check it out. If you haven't read Genesis 49, check it out. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be. And look at those cross references. That's about the most I've seen, I think, as going through this Bible program software. So you can see how important that one is. And again, 1 Samuel 3:21. And the Lord appeared again in Shiloh, for the Lord revealed himself to Samuel in Shiloh by the word of the Lord. And once again, the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be. So 1 Samuel 17:49. And David put his hand in his bag, and took thence a stone, and slang it, and smote the Philistine in his forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon his face to the earth. And Genesis 3:15, the fact that we'll just go to Genesis 3:15. I like to get to it. So Genesis 3:15. That last one was about David and Goliath. David slaying Goliath. And Genesis 3:15. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. So, where did Goliath get hit? He got hit in the forehead. So, there's that. 1 Samuel 19:5. For he did put his life in his hand, and slew the Philistine, and the Lord wrought a great salvation for all Israel. Thou sawest it, and did rejoice. Wherefore then wilt thou sin against innocent blood, to slay David without a cause? Matthew 27:4. Let's see if it's up in here. Yep, cross-reference. Saying, I have sinned in thee that I have betrayed the innocent blood. And they said, what is that to us? See thou to that. So Jesus Christ being innocent blood. And again, 1 Samuel 19:5 talks about innocent blood. Okay. 1 Samuel 20:32. And Jonathan answered Saul his father, and said unto him, wherefore shall he be slain? What hath he done? In Matthew 15, go to now, Matthew 15, if you're following along, Matthew 15, Mark 15:14. Mark 15:14. So Mark 15:14. And so Pilate, willing to content the people, released Barabbas onto them, and delivered Jesus when he had scourged him to be crucified. Is that the right verse? 14, sorry. Then Pilate said unto them, so this is 14. Let me just go back and just want to make sure we go back and get it. So 1 Samuel 20:32. Just one more time. Make sure you get it. And Jonathan answered Saul his father, and said unto him, wherefore shall he be slain? What hath he done? And now we'll go back to Mark 15:14. Then Pilate said unto them, why, what evil hath he done? And they cried out more exceedingly, crucify him. So both, and Samuel 20:32, what hath he done? You see that Jesus Christ, was innocent. So I think you're aware of that. But 2 Samuel 5:1 now. Maybe let me get a drink. Okay. 2 Samuel 5:1, chapter 5, verse 1. Then came all the tribes of Israel to David unto Hebron, and spake, saying, behold, we are thy bone and thy flesh. And so there you have that. Next, Ephesians 5:30. I thought I clicked on it 5:30. Think you're going to know where I'm going with this one. For we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. And we saw in 2 Samuel 5:1, then came all the tribes of Israel to David unto Hebron, and spake, saying, behold, we are thy bone and thy flesh. And then in Ephesians 5:30, for we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. 2 Samuel 18:3. See how long this is so far. Maybe a half an hour. I always forget where the time is. So 34 minutes. Not too bad, I guess. 2 Samuel, I'm trying to keep it under an hour. 2 Samuel 18:3. But the people answered, thou shalt not go forth. For if we flee away, then will not care for us. They will not care for us. Neither if half of us die, let me just start over. But the people answered, thou shalt not go forth. For if we flee away, they will not care for us. Neither if half of us die, will they care for us. But now thou art worth 10,000 of us. Wherefore now it is better that thou succor us out of the city. Forget how to pronounce that word. I've heard it before, but so I mean, okay, notice 10,000 here. Okay, and how? But now thou art worth 10,000 of us. And here it's talking about David here, and but let's see now what. Sorry, I lose my focus just a little bit. Okay, Solomon taking you. So remember the 10,000 here. You're worth 10,000, and here's David before that. So I think it's talking about David. I'd have to maybe look into it here. Yeah, David it's talking about, and now Solomon 5:10, Song of Solomon 5:10. My beloved is white and ruddy, the chiefest among 10,000. So there you go. And if you look at Song of Solomon, about the Lord and his bride, and maybe that'd be a separate video if I can remember or if I get to it. Now 2 Samuel 22:44. 2 Samuel and 1 Samuel actually have a lot, and I don't see those books quoted too much, maybe in videos and maybe sermons, but there's a lot in there. So 2 Samuel 22:44, more than I even realized. So I mean, something that I'd have to study more. And so it's 22:44. Thou also hast delivered me from the strivings of my people. Thou hast kept me to be head of the heathen. A people which I knew not shall serve me. So people that he knew not. And Psalms, I mean, just think about it. And then look at the cross references too here. And it does actually have the one I want to go to. So Psalms 2:8. Ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. So, there you go. And there's a lot of cross references. I like to give Isaiah 55:5 too with this one. Behold, thou shalt call a nation that thou knowest not, and the nations that knew not thee shall run unto thee because of the Lord thy God, and for the Holy One of Israel, for he hath glorified thee. I gave you Psalms 2:8. So next, Psalms 23. 2 Samuel 23:3-4. So now just go one chapter up. 2 Samuel 23:3-4. Yep. The God of Israel said, the Rock of Israel spake to me. He that ruleth over men must be just, ruling in the fear of God. And he shall be as the light of the morning, when the sun riseth, even morning without clouds, as the tender grass springing out of the earth by clear shining after rain. So, I mean, there you have the Rock of Israel, that being Jesus Christ. Light of the morning, and let's go, it talks about the light of the morning. Where is it? Okay, as he shall be as the light of the morning. I'm going to go to Malachi 4:2. I think that's the one. So 4:2. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings, and ye shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall. So a verse that gets used a lot, and the Son of Righteousness, as you see, capital S. And, that's a biblical theme, light. And being a Christian, now you are in light. Before you were saved, you were in darkness. Jesus Christ being the light of the world. So let's see. Skipping Kings. Do I have any Kings? Yeah, I got a couple of Kings references here. Just kind of looking how many I have here. 2 Kings. Again, I'm skipping a lot of them just for time's sake, and so I don't want to give two, because I could give them all, but it'd be a lot of information. So I'm trying to keep this under a certain amount of information too. So 2 Kings 5:14. Then went he down and dipped himself 7 times in Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God. And his flesh came again like unto the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. So Matthew 18. So here you have, let's see, where are we at? 5 Kings. Naaman, I don't know, Naaman. Let's see. Went into, 5:14. Dipped himself 7 times in Jordan. He had leprosy, the Naaman, I don't know how to pronounce it, and went into Jordan 7 times. And I think he was, he was a captain of the host of the king of Syria. But now I'm going to give you Matthew 18 here, 18:3. And said, Verily I say unto you, except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. So you see, being a king of Syria, Naaman, I don't know how to pronounce his name really, but he might have been prideful. No, I'm not, because at first he didn't want to do it. Going into like a Jordan River and then dipping himself in 7 times. But the Bible says you must be like little children. It's about his conversion here, and going into the water, would be probably a symbol of baptism. And again, Matthew 18, and said, Verily I say unto you, except ye be converted and become as little children, you shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. So 2 Kings 5:15. One second. And he returned to the man of God, he and all his company, and came and stood before him. And he said, Behold, now I know that there is no God in all the earth but in Israel. Now therefore, I pray thee, take a blessing of thy servant. And so we're continuing on with what we just saw, the king of Syria, Naaman, and remember his flesh of a little child, and you must be. We saw before in Matthew, become as little children, and again back in 2 Kings 5:15. We see that the flesh of a little child, his flesh came again like onto the flesh of a little child, and where that going is, except ye be converted and become as a little children. We saw in Matthew 18:3, and now in 2 Kings 5:15, we see that he said that we know that there's one God, and then this king that got converted, and from the Syrian king that got converted, he said that there's only one God. Basically, that's what he said. There's only one God. He said right here, Behold, now I know that there's no God in all the earth but in Israel. So there he says it. And so I'm going to take you to 1 John 5:13, I think. So 1 John 5:13. 1 John 5:13, and not too many more here, so I think this video might. These things have I written unto you that believe on the name of the Son of God, that ye may know that ye have eternal life, and that ye may believe on the name of the Son of God. So 2 Kings 25 now. 2 Kings 25. Turn again and tell Hezekiah, the captain of my people, Thus saith the Lord, the God of David thy father, I have heard thy prayer, I have seen thy tears. Behold, I will heal thee. On the third day thou shalt go up unto the house of the Lord. And notice how Hezekiah was sick unto death, and he will go up and be healed. He's going to the house of the Lord on the third day. And, Christ rose on the third day from the dead. Christ being the Son of God, Son of Man, God manifested in the flesh, and, a living God. He was able to rise from the dead. Resurrection, very key to the scriptures and to the salvation message. It's essential. So a few more here to go. 2 Chronicles 17:5. 2 Chronicles 17:5. Therefore the Lord established the kingdom in his hand, and all Judah brought to Jehoshaphat presents, that he had riches and honor in abundance. So there you go. And Psalm 72. Going to Psalm 72. Where is it here? Psalm 72, 10 through 11. The kings of Tarshish and of the isles shall bring presents. The kings of Sheba and Seba shall offer gifts. Yea, all kings shall fall down before him, and all nations shall serve him. Showing how the nations are going to serve and bow down before Jesus Christ and giving him gifts. Moving on. 2 Chronicles 29, 1 through 2, and then 10. So 2 Chronicles 29, 1 through 2. Hezekiah began to reign when he was 25 years old. And he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Abijah, I can't pronounce it, the daughter of Zechariah. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, according to all that David his father had done. And in verse 10, Now it is in mine heart to make a covenant with the Lord God of Israel, that his fierce wrath may turn away from us. So just saying how Hezekiah, meditated a covenant on behalf of the people to turn away God's wrath. And we see Christ, the mediator of the new covenant. So 2 Chronicles 33:4. 33:4. And he built altars in the house of the Lord, whereof the Lord had said, In Jerusalem shall my name be forever. And it's in Jerusalem that the Lord Jesus Christ reigns, and he reigns forever with a name that's above every name. Check out Luke 1:33, Revelation 11:15, Philippians 2:9. So Nehemiah 6:3. And I sent messengers unto them, saying, I am doing a great work, so that I cannot come down. Why should the work cease, whilst I leave it and come down to you? And the book says, thank God that Jesus didn't come down when he was doing his great work in Calvary. So now we'll go to Job. And I just got done studying the book of Job, and I'll have to study some more. If you look at like the media and stuff like that, they either will really make fun of the book of Job, or they'll simplify it, where they make it, not mean what it really does. And it's a very important book. I mean, they're all important, but there's so much information. I really think Satan attacks the book of Job by trying to downplay its importance and making fun of it. I mean, for one, look what's happened to Satan. he was, failed on what he was did to Job, because Satan thought he was going to get Job to curse God, but Job didn't, and it was God's plan the whole time. So I'm sure Satan hates the book of Job, and it's got so much information, and it's got a lot of prophecy, it's got a lot of wisdom. There's a lot in the book of Job. Very important book. A lot to it. So Job 19:25. For I know that my Redeemer liveth, and he shall stand at the latter day upon the earth. And I'm going to read 26 too. And though after my skin worms destroy this body, yet in my flesh shall I see God. So Job knew that he was going to see God, and in his flesh yet. So what a book. They consider Job the oldest book. And again in verse 25, for I know that my Redeemer liveth, and that he shall stand in the latter day upon the earth. And Zechariah 14:4. Zechariah 14:4. And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof toward the east and toward the west. And there shall be a very great valley, and half of the mountain shall remove toward the north, and half of it toward the south. So we know Jesus Christ is going to come back and stand at the later day upon the earth. He's coming back. Amen to that. So I'll see how much I'm doing on time. Again, I want to keep it about an hour here. So 52 minutes. So Psalm 68:18. Psalm 68:18. Thou hast ascended on high. Thou hast led captivity captive. Thou hast received gifts for men, yea, for the rebellious also, that the Lord God might dwell among them. So see Ephesians 4:8-9. So now let's go to Ephesians 4:8-9. Wherefore he saith, when he ascended up on high, he led captivity captive, and gave gifts unto men. Now that he ascended, what is it but that he also descended first into the lower parts of the earth? So then again, it's talking about Jesus Christ. Psalm 78:65. Okay, Psalm 78:65. Then the Lord awaked, and the Lord awaked as one out of sleep, and like a mighty man that shouteth by reason of wine. So the verse points to the second coming when Jesus will awake to judge the world. Psalm 59:4-5 it lists. So let's check that out. 59:4-5. Checking it out. So they run and prepare themselves without my fault. Awake to help me, and behold. Thou therefore, O Lord God of hosts, the God of Israel, awake to visit all thy heathen. Be not merciful to any wicked transgressors. Selah. Let's see. Psalm 80, verse 7. Turn us again, O God of hosts, and cause thy face to shine, and we shall be saved. So Israel will be saved when she receives Christ as her Messiah in the Great Tribulation. And so there's that. Let's see what else we got here. Well, let's see. I'm just seeing how much more here. It looks like I'm gonna probably do the rest in a second video. I'd probably go over an hour, and I probably should have stopped at 40 minutes, but I'll stop here. I mean, I really don't have too many more, but I think it still would take 20 some minutes, and so it'd be this is about as much information I want to put in. So I mean, there's a lot to take in, even for me. I've read these verses already a couple times, maybe 3 times or so, as far as the book that I'm reading from, and even doing this video, I'm trying to take in all the information. It can be even a lot to take in, so I think this would be a good time to stop. I can always do a part 2 maybe next weekend or something. So thanks for watching, and I just want to say, well, praise God.